fellow cinephilists, my name is Christina, and welcome to another Let's Get Reelz movie review. Today is my segment I like to call What's on Netflix, where I tell you what is on Netflix that maybe has a low rating or maybe you've never heard of before. Today I am doing a documentary about Janis Joplin called Little Girl Blue, which is absolutely fascinating. It chronicles like where she came from in Texas to when she started getting into music and when she became popular, and just everything about her life. It was told by her former bandmate. She was actually in a band. I never knew that. I just always thought she was a solo artist. She was in Big Brother and the Holding Company at first, and that's how she got popular and she became well known. And then she did try and strike out on her own for a while. She had another band and she grew with that. Even if you just heard of Janis Joplin before, you might have heard that she died at 27 years old because she was addicted to drugs. She overdosed. And maybe you've heard of her most popular song, Me and Bobby McGee, or you've seen her record cover of Pearl that is her only solo album, was actually released 3 months after she had passed away, as well as Me and Bobby McGee, which is also her really only huge hit that she ever had in her career. I like documentaries and I love music. Besides movies, music is like the love of my life. I have over 10,000 songs on my iTunes and on my iPod. I just love music so much. I really listen to everything. I listen to The Who's, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Kelly Clarkson, ELO, St. Lucia, and then I have NWA, and it just goes on and on. I have everything under the sun. I really don't discriminate. I'm not a huge country fan, but I do have some country music on there, and I'd always heard of Janis Joplin, so I just decided to go listen to her one day, and then I downloaded a Greatest Hits album, and I really liked the type of music that she did. Sometimes I think her voice can get a little too much for me. After a while I have to go and listen to something else, and then a while later come back. I have to kind of detox my brain from her voice. But she was just so unique. It's just never been heard again. You can hear her influence on people, definitely, and even her music, you can hear it today. She was blues and rock, and I can see why people find inspiration from her and her music and her voice. She was just completely unique, and the way she lived her life was a little bit interesting, just because she was so young, and she's like I said, only lived until 27 years old, but she just did so much in those 27 years. She just traveled everywhere, recorded albums that sold so many, and became this icon. And it's just unfortunate that she died so young, because I think she could have made great music and could have become even more of a legend had she not died at 27 years old, and that breaks my heart. And she had tried so many times, the documentary explains, to kick heroin. She did, and she actually lost the man who was the love of her life. She considered to be the love of her life, because she just could not really kick heroin, and that was really hard to hear. It was, as I keep saying, it was all very sad to hear. And one of the reasons that she did heroin a lot was because she would get such a rush and such a high from being on stage singing in front of people, and she just gave so much of her emotion to the crowd and just really absorbed other people's emotions around her that she had to escape. And for her, heroin was the way that she escaped, and alcohol, and she just couldn't handle that come down of being on stage. And apparently she really didn't do drugs before she went out on stage. She always usually did it after. There's a lot that's in there too besides her drug use. It really, of course they're gonna mention it because it played obviously a huge part in her life, but it focused more on her music, how she sang, where she came from, and just the type of person that she was, because she was born in 1943, and then as she grew older, she was in the South, and women just were not like we are today. If you were bawdy and raucous and just like to have a good time, you were a complete outcast. You know, today we wouldn't think twice of a person like Janis Joplin, you know, like with her attitude and the way she presented herself, and with all the cursing. I mean, God, I curse like a sailor. I can't even imagine, you know, like what it must have been like for someone like Janis Joplin who was like that. And, you know, she would swear up and down in her letters. They read some of her letters in this documentary, and, you know, you can see that she was a bit ahead of her time for music, for the way a woman lived, and just a lot of things, a lot of other things. She was very, very ahead of her time, and I think that's what helped her to pave the way for other women to come into music, into rock. And I like Janis Joplin because of that, because of the way she lived. I have a lot more respect for her. Not that I didn't before. I just knew, like, oh, you know, she did drugs. I was that type of asshole to kind of like judge people like, oh, you died of a drug overdose, like you're a loser. But you know, as I've aged, I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of sad if people have that addiction to drugs. You really, you know, you can't help it. And she just really couldn't help it. And at that time in the 60s, drugs were like, so here you go, you know. It wasn't like it was taboo, but it wasn't like, you know, outrageously taboo. I really, really liked Little Girl Blue. I liked learning about Janis Joplin some more. I think it helped me to appreciate her music a lot more, and I can't wait to continue listening to her music and have a deeper appreciation for it now. And I really hope that you guys go and watch Little Girl Blue and gain an appreciation for Janis Joplin. If you don't, or if you don't know who she is, I think this would be a great introduction for her, this documentary. I think you'll come to respect her as an artist, you'll like her as an artist, and maybe even as a person. She was just a very, very interesting person, and I can see why she's such an icon in music. And if you're just into documentaries, I think you'll really, really like Little Girl Blue. This was directed and written by a woman, by Amy J. Berg, so I think it had that little bit more of a sensitivity to it as well. Like, I don't want to really say that when it comes to female directors, but I think that's true with this. I think there was a little bit more of, like, I guess, as I said, sensitivity, but also an understanding and a caring aspect to it. It wasn't like she was condemning Janis Joplin for the way she lived. Nobody was. All the people that were interviewed for this knew Janis Joplin, and nobody condemned her for how she lived. Nobody was mad at her. Nobody, you know, it was just the time period and everything, and they all appreciated her. And I think that Berg was really able to capture that very, very well with her direction and how she wrote it and how it was played out, and with like letters and pictures, and all the performance footage was really awesome. It was great to see Janis Joplin performing at these various festivals, on TV shows, and there was interviews from like TV shows with her, and those were very sensitive too. There was one with Dick Cavett, and it was just great to see that. And you got to see that she was a person who cared deeply, and then you hear from Cavett himself and how he just really loved her as a person and everything, and you see that in his interviews. That was my review / rambling. I guess I did a little bit more rambling than a review, and if you liked it in any way, please give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. If you do listen to Janis Joplin, let me know what your favorite song is by her, or anything you have to say about her music, her life. I would love to know. I'm not an expert on Janis Joplin, but I would love to know what everybody else thinks, how you interpret her music, and we'll just talk about music, we'll talk about Janis Joplin, anything. Also in the comments, if you have any suggestions of what I should watch on Netflix next, or even if they're not on Netflix, leave them in the comments so that if I pick your movie and I review it, I will give you a shout out. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future what's on Netflix and other movie reviews, because that is what I like to do here. And as always, keep watching movies and stay absolutely fabulous.